want to go to the Schedule menu, select Timeline, and here I have in my demo database a couple of example timelines that you can see what they do and how they work, and then we'll build our own. So here's a three-phase transaction timetable. I click Edit so I can take a look at it. And when I open it up, it says Edit Timeline Template. And the first thing you see is this little thing called Unclassified. You can ignore that. That's just part of our process of how we build these. You don't do anything with that. Then the next thing you see is a phase. This is a way to break up the series of events with points of, tipping points maybe going one way or the other on the transaction. So you see here we have an agency phase, an advisory phase, agency phase, and due diligence and closing phase. Now, each of these phases has distinct properties. In the advisory phase, the first thing I'm going to do as a to-do, which starts 0 days. When it says 0 days, that means right now. When I schedule this with a client or on a property, whatever it is, in this case it says inspection property, so it's going to be probably on a property record. The first thing I'm going to do is start today with these three things. I'm going to give myself a week to inspect their property, gather and analyze data, which will take 3 weeks, and up to 3 weeks to prepare, analyze, and calculate estimated property values. And let's just drag this all that so we can see it all, and return matrices. Okay? So day one, I'm going to schedule these three events, and that's the time I'm going to give myself to complete them. All right? So it'll show up on my time management, and it'll show up on my calendars and so on with these dates marked and these events. Here's another to-do. Then after a week has passed, I add another to-do, which is prepare drafts of all marketing material. And I give myself 2 weeks to accomplish that. And then at the week, 2 weeks after I start, I have meet with owner, finalize operating projections, pricing targets, and that takes a total of 3 weeks and so on. So the whole idea is you figure out, okay, I need to do these things in my advisory phase. How long will it take, and at what point in the process do I start it? So it's project management in one way because you're doing a time sequence series of events. Now, what's great about REA is you can build this timeline for, in this case, a property marketing, and then you can apply just the first phase to a property, and then when it goes into maybe the next phase, the marketing phase, then you have pre-marketing materials, and that starts 2 weeks from the beginning, begin presentation and so on. And then finally, when you get into the hard negotiations, you can add this final phase, which is due diligence and closing phase. Okay, so let's take a look at how this works. If I close this, and I close it again, and I go into a property record, and this is just an example, and let's say this property I want to apply that timeline to. So I go Schedule, Timeline, and I'm going to do the three-phase transaction timetable, and I'm going to select Schedule, and now it asks me, okay, what's your start date for this? So today is 3/25/2010. I can say, yeah, that's fine. Today's Thursday. I can start on this, or I can start it on Friday, or whatever date I want to start it on, or I can even backdate it if I want to. It doesn't matter. We'll let you click the calendar here and pick whatever date you want. Then we have some options here. If an event falls on a weekend, what should I do with it? Schedule it to the following Monday, schedule it to the previous Friday, or just leave it. Okay? Then we ask you, is this the property to which you want this timeline linked? And in this case, yes, I want to do it on 7760 Mesa College Drive, and that's fine. And I can also do a pull down, and this is probably a good idea for your marketing reports. You would normally have a project with the same name, 7760 Mesa College Drive, so that you could tie it to the project at the same time. It's not required, but it's probably a good idea because then it'll show up in your marketing reports that you've done all these things, or these things are going to be, it'll show that they've been done. In this case, I don't have a project that's congruent with this one, so I'm just going to skip that. The owner is me. The team is everyone. That means everyone on my team can see this timeline. Okay. My next step is then click here, and then ask me what series of events do you want to add to this particular property. And again, remember I said you could just select which ones you want it. Now, in the example I have here, everything is selected. We're assuming we're going to get all the way through to a closing by August. Okay, that's probably unrealistic. So let's take off the due diligence and closing phase and click Next. Oh, and by the way, when you're in this view, if you want to change the time sequence, you can. Uncheck a row or skip the event. You know how I did that. Double-click a row to edit the event and use the plus or minus keys or any of the date keys to change the event's date. So if you know specifically a certain date in here is not going to fit your process, then you can go in and double-click on it and change the specific date. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go next. And it says description is, I'm just going to keep the name of the property as the description. I can change it. I can put in a report title 3-phase, transaction timetable. Maybe I'll say 2-phase because it's only the first 2 phases. Subtitle if I want my report, and then notes. Anything I want to put in here as far as the timeline details. And I'm going to go next. It says, you ready to go? And I say, okay. Okay, so now we have 2 things we can go to. We can go to see the timeline, and then we'll go look at it on our Events tab here on this property. So I'm going to click Close here. And here's how the timeline looks as a spread type of, when the things are supposed to happen. So it says, okay, these are all the open things you have to do, inspection of property, analyze, and all the things that we scheduled. And it says 7 days as far as the range here, and then 21, and then 21 and 14. Those are the times allowed, the number of days allowed to complete that particular event. So you can see how this all works. Now, if you want to, you can export this to Excel so that you can give it off to an assistant or someone else working with you if you don't have them log into your database. But you can see how this works, and you can bring these up anytime. So I click OK or Close. And now if I go to my Events tab on my property, you see all the different individual events are now applied to this property. Further, if I go to my time management window, you're going to see, okay, here it is. 7760 Mesa College Drive is the first one, and then we go through. All of them are inserted into my time management. So every day I come in the office, I start my time management, which you're supposed to with the way we teach you, and you see they're all there. Okay, they're everything you need to do. Now again, anytime you get to any one of these, if a time hurdle has occurred, you can always change the actual date it's going to be completed because you have complete control over here. A couple things to note is that whenever you schedule using a timeline on the event, individual event, there's going to be this little pyramid style icon to the far left, which shows you that this is part of a timeline. So when you look at your calendar, you can look at your calendar or your time management. You can see its timeline. If I go to my view and my calendar, it's probably best to use. Yeah, I got the weekly view here. You can see all the different things that are on the calendar until they're actually taken care of, and we actually repeat them by day because they're scheduled for each day. If I go to the month view, there you can see how they spread over the month. It's a little busy with all this stuff, but the things are there, and that's why I suggest, I think the best way always is to use your time management because it gives you a nice linear view of the world. Okay, so that's that's an example how it looks when it's applied. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here, and everybody please answer the poll if you can, and I'll give you about a few seconds here, and probably won't need many, say 20 seconds, so you can answer our poll. And all right, I'm going to close it. Okay, 100%. Everybody got it right, so I must be doing a good job teaching this particular part of the module. So thank you very much. So did I share it? Yeah, I did. Okay, so you can see 100% everybody got it. And onward. All right, so now what happens if I apply all these things? I can delete them if I need to. I click on the first one, highlight them, all of them, and right-click, and I can delete all the things that are, if I accidentally apply one. Okay, takes a little bit of time, but you can do it. All right, so now let's go back and build our own. So we're going to go back into contacts. You can do it from contacts or properties. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go Schedule, Timeline, and I'm going to create a new one. And my new timeline is Investor Prospecting. And the idea of this timeline is if I meet somebody or come in contact with someone or someone refers to me a possible new investor that I can work with, I want to be able to make sure that I don't let that slip by and forget about following up on it. Most of us are pretty good at following up once or twice. But the fact of the matter is, just for your information, it takes usually 6 to 7 touches before someone's even interested in doing business with us. So you have to be persistent, a little bit more than talented maybe, and persistence is one of those things that's hard to do. But this will help prompt you to be persistent in a nice way. So I'm going to say, okay, investor prospecting, I'm the owner, my team is, everyone can use this timeline. I'm going to put it on the menu also. So now I have my window where I can create my events. So the first thing I'm going to say is new phase, and my new phase is introduction. And I can put a color on it here. Let's suppose in introductory phase, I want to make it kind of a light blue because we're just getting going here. Okay. Now I want to put in my new event. And my new event, the first thing I'm going to do is make a phone call. Oops, where did I put it here? Oh, yeah, there it is at the top. A phone call, introduce myself to prospect. And I can put a priority on it and whatever, but it's going to be a 0-day, obviously. It's going to be today when I started. And the original way it's set up, you could put an alarm on if you want. I wouldn't advise to put alarms on this type of event because it's something that you just want to do every day, and it's a prospecting call basically. And you don't need to go off at a certain time, although if you want to have all your prospecting calls for timeline set to a certain time of day when you do your cold calling, more power to you. Okay, so participants, right now it's going to say nobody because the default is the scheduler of the event is always the person. When you go ahead to assign this timeline to a prospect, it's going to automatically put your name in there because you're the scheduler. You're logged into the database as the scheduler, so that only makes sense. However, if you want to, when you schedule this particular step in the timeline, you can add participants by going over to the 3-dot button and finding the folks in your office who else you want to participate in. So probably not on a phone call, but a meeting or whatever it is, and if you know that's going to be a definite step in your timeline, you can put in the participants as you go. Okay, so then link to nothing, obviously, because we're not applying this right now to a contact record, so we don't want to link it to anybody, although you can, if you wanted to, you'd say, every time I schedule this, link it to this particular company or contact. I don't think that would be a viable way of doing this. You want to link to nothing because that is the process, and you'll link it to the person or company when we get there. So if I want to add notes about my introduction myself, I can, but let's make it simple and click OK. So the first thing I do is pick up the phone. And now I said duration is 1 day. That may or may not be enough, so I might have to edit this. So I'm going to edit this one and say, you know what, it might take me a week to make contact with this person. So I'll give myself a week to get this phone call through. Okay? Now, second thing I want to do is, let's say I call, and I don't know about your process. Maybe you leave a message, maybe you don't. But I'm going to put in my new event, which is send company brochure. And so this is something I want to do the same day I leave a message or make my first call, is I want to throw the send company brochure in postal mail. And, probably with a letter and that sort of thing, introducing my company. Again, I'm going to do it 0 days. I can only need 1 day to do this. I could say in my notes, include cover letter. So I don't forget to do that. And I could put a color on this particular thing too. This event is other, or you could say it's a letter. So let's put letter in here. Click OK. And then let's do an email at about the 4th day or 5th day. So we're going to add a new event. And the new event is send email with current listings. let's say you got a bunch of listings for your company. You want to send those to them, say, hey, look all the stuff we're doing. And that's event type is going to be an email. And let's see here where it is on our lovely list. There it is. And it's an email, and I'm going to start that in, let's say, 3 days after I make my first call and send the stuff in the mail. Okay? So that's the process. And now let's suppose I've gotten through the gatekeeper and I've started a dialogue with this particular investor. I can collect a new phase, which is, get personal, whatever you want to call it. And what I want to do in this new phase is I want to warm up the relationship a little bit with a little bit of red. And my new event is invite to lunch. I want to get a face-to-face meeting, basically. So this would be a meeting. And I want to do that, let's say, 2 weeks. Let's see here, starts in 2 weeks. And duration, it might take me a week to get that scheduled with that person. And that's my next event. Okay. So this is obviously an optimistic timeline that after a week of soliciting, this person says, yes, I'll go to lunch, but you get the idea. And then I could also have a phase after. I could have a couple of get personal phase, let's say a new one, golf outing. And that would start, let's say, in a couple of weeks, or maybe even more. Maybe that'd be 3 weeks or a month, whatever you want to put in there. And duration takes me a week to get that scheduled and so on. Okay. And then I might say, okay, I'm in a new phase, which is maintain. And I click OK. And this new event would be always, I think, every quarter we suggest that you phone call, which is we call a cold call to all your people that you have started a relationship with. Your lingo might be, well, cold call is somebody I've never talked to, but the way we look at it here at REA is we have first-time call and we have cold calls. Those are people that we started a relationship with, but maybe have not gotten to the point where we're actually doing business with them. So I just want to do a checking in with investor call. Just taking their temperature type of thing. Okay, so that might be a month, 2 months down the road, 3 months. That way, at least it's done, and you can even make it recurring if you want. But in this case, we're going to just do it there. And there's a process that you can at least put in place so someone doesn't slip through the cracks. So now I've got that done. And I've got that done. And let's say I get a new client. Let's say I want to do some business with him. And let's say his name is Don Wellington. I want to apply this to his contact record. So I look him up. And let's see if I got some events for him. No, I don't. I've just gotten to know him. I did a profile of him. I know a little bit about him here, quite a bit about what he does as an investor. So I want to schedule investor prospecting. It's going to start today. It would be the Don Wellington project. I do have an investor prospecting project that I created for myself so I can monitor my own investor prospecting activities and events. So I go next, and I say, okay, I want to schedule all this stuff because I don't want to drop this investor off and forget about him. And notes charity golf event, let's say. Something like that. Okay, so there's your timeline. It's going to be spread out through the next, from the month today to the 6 months out. And now I've got it in here, all these different things that I'm going to do with Don in order to try to get his business and try to build a relationship. If I go to my time management, you'll see I got my 7760 Mesa College Drive stuff in there still, and then I got my Don Wellington stuff in there also. So it's all put out in a linear fashion so that I can always, or that I won't forget to keep on top of this particular relationship. Okay. So any questions on this particular aspect of REA and how to create your own timeline and how to apply it to your prospects and buildings and so on. Any questions at all? Please go to the chat, or not chat, go to the questions and type in the questions, and I will answer them if, let's see, can you email the timeline? Well, yeah, you can. The way you would do it is export it to Excel first, and then you could email it out of the from Excel. You'd attach it and send it to somebody. Other question is this system going to apply to the new project-oriented function that Tim is working on? I have no idea. So that's something that I can't discuss at this point, so we're going to leave that out of our discussion. Can you show the timeline on Don? Okay. Well, you can always go view timelines, and you can see the different timelines that you've created. So you can see that all the ones that are in here that are available to you, and you can find the one that's been applied based on where we are, okay? So these are the ones that are available. If I look at Don here and go view, let's see, I think that's what you wanted, was to see this, but I'm not sure. Or, again, timelines, and this would be investor prospecting. And here's one that I've done on here. It is on Don. Actually, I've got it twice because I did it way last fall. And I can double-click on it, and I can see the timeline there. And the next question is, can these tasks pop up at login every morning? Well, if you want to, the way to do it is to have your task list always be the first thing you see. And the way you do that, if you have been to our beginners class, which you may have missed, is go to the Tools menu, Options, and select Show Time Management on Startup. So when you start up, this is the view you'll see first before you get into your database. And then what you do is you set your date range for past and future so that the timeline is maybe, the next 4 months, the next 6 months, whatever you want to do. And you can also filter it by your queries. If you go up to query, you can turn off a query and turn off or turn on certain views of what you want to see. Okay. So if I want to see just one particular event type, I just want to see my meetings. I click OK, and the query will reduce your time management to just meetings because that's what I asked for. All right. So it goes from 1 month to 6 months. It says these are the meetings that you scheduled the next 6 months. So I'll go back to all records here, and that's how that works. So I hope that answers your questions. Okay, can you attach a standard letter for investor when it's time to send the letter? You might have already covered this. Can you attach? You can't attach. You can't attach a letter to an event. What you can say is send standard letter for at that point, where you have that in your process. But you're not going to have a letter that you can attach. It's not automated to the point where, we put it in there and then you say it automatically puts it out and sends it out automatically because the date has been reached. We don't automate the process. You physically still have to do whatever is in the timeline. And for instance, if it's send email, I right-click and I can go to the link contact, and then I would go ahead and say, okay, what's my thing I have to do? Or send email, current listen, whatever it is, and then you physically have to do it. We don't automate that process. Okay. So that is how you create timelines. And does anyone else have any questions on those? Be glad to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you for the good questions we got so far. Appreciate those. Okay. Looks like that's done pretty much. Key thing is schedule, timeline, build your timeline. Like I said, I think doing it on with pen and paper first is the kind of things that you normally want to do, and then put it into RA. Now, maybe your question that I got earlier was, can you have them pop up? Yeah, Edward, you could actually. When you're actually scheduling these things, let's do edit. Let's say, let's say the email one. If I want to edit this, I can set an alarm on any one of these events in my timeline. But my advice to you is not to have alarms going off all day with this sort of stuff. Just do it on the things that maybe are time-driven, that somebody says I have to have a call by noon, or we have a meeting at 1 o'clock. Those are the reasons to have alarms. the best way is always to work your time management window and go from here and work through your stuff as you go through your day. Okay. All right, I want to do custom views now, and I'd like to show that in the property database. So I'm going to open up my properties, and the field I'm going to use is building status. Okay, you see I've got the building status here. And what I did was I created a pop-up menu so that when I put in a building, I can pop this up, and I can put in the different types of status. You know, I got available, closed, and expired. Okay, so let's use those three: available, closed, and expired as our custom views. What we want to be able to do is at any point just click and see if which buildings, which properties in my database meet any one of these criteria. Okay, so and you can even customize this field, by the way, for instance, or any field with your properties and say must use pop-up table. In other words, you can force your users to only select off the list that you create. Okay, and you can have warn user of blank, and that means that if somebody creates a new property record, before they move off of it, REA will say, hey, you know, you've got a field here that you're supposed to fill in. Do you want to fill it in, yes or no? And at that point, they can do it. But I just use, you must use pop-up table, and then, you know, you create the pop-up table, and you've got it available. You've got it here so that you can go ahead and put in what you need. So we got available, closed, expired, okay? So now what I want to do is go View and select Custom Views, and I'm going to do a new custom view. So let me show you that again. View, Custom Views, New. And my new view is going to be Building Status. Nothing too complicated. Now here's where people get tripped up. Because I'm in the Properties table, I can't have the type say Contact, because then the fields that are in the property record won't be available to me when I do this. It says, oh, you're making this custom view for contacts. And no, I'm not. I'm doing it for properties. So that's where most people make their mistake, and they call, say, I can't get this custom view to work. And it's, okay, well, let's take a look at your property setting, and it says, oh, okay, you're trying to do it in contacts, but you're actually in properties, or vice versa. So I'm the owner of the team. Everyone can see these custom views. And I can say Show Custom View on Menu, and the submenu will be, this one will be available. Oops. A-V-A-I-L. All right, for typing. And I'm going to click OK. And now the field I want to search on is this Building Status field. So I can't see it right now. It's covered up. So I'm going to do the pull down here and find Building Status. There it is. And again, if I was not in Properties, and if I had not said this is for a property custom view, that you'd see, well, I can't find the Building Status field. Well, it's because you said I'm doing it in Contacts. Okay, just make sure you match the type to the table that you want to be in this case, Properties. So Building Status is, and I have the little pop-up here, and I can say Available, okay? And that's it. That's all I want for that one, okay? And I want to edit it, and I want to add a new one. Let's see, by going Add. Let's see, I'm sorry, Cancel here. I want to do yes, I want to edit it. Okay. No, I want to create new. I'm sorry, create new. Here we go. I got messed up there. So the new description is closed. Can't edit the existing one. You have the view, and you add a new view. Okay, again, I don't want to say Contact. I want to say Property. Show Custom View on Menu. And the menu is going to be Building Status. Okay. And the field, again, is Building Status. And this time is Closed. That's what I want. Okay, and then I want a new custom view, and this is expired. And it's in property, show custom view on menu, building status. I might have to go back and fix the first one because I might not have put it in the right place. But we'll take a look. Okay. And the field, again, is building status. And this time is expired. All right. So let's see. Did I do the first one right? No, I didn't. I got to edit this one with my properties. And the description should be available. Okay, and the submenu should be building status. There we go. All right. Okay, good. So now I've got these available, closed, and expired. I click close. Okay. And now most of the time you have to close the table you're in to see it, but let's see. View. Oh, no, came up this time. Sometimes you have to close and reopen properties. Here's building status, and I say, okay, I want to see all my available properties. And when I do that, REA runs a query, and it says you have 1 to 10 properties equals available. And here you can see it's got available. So if I were to scroll through one at a time, they're all available. Okay? Or if I want to see building status, closed business, it finds I have one property that meets the closed business criteria. Now, let's suppose I don't know anything about REA, and I'm the owner of the company, and I just want to go in and see what our status is for our properties that we have as part of our listings. All I need to do is start up REA, and I don't have to go into the time management. I can have all this closed. I can go to the View menu and select Building Status, and I can just click any one of the ones I have on here. I want to say what's our available building inventory, what our property is doing. I say 10 buildings, and I can go through it. And that's this is a nice feature to set up for maybe the president of the company who doesn't use REA but who wants to know this data. You could have available, closed, expired. You could have in under contract or whatever, and that would be kind of like a dashboard or snapshot of what's going on with the database. Would be available to them using it off that menu. Okay? And there's lots of other things you can do with these custom views. One other one that people like a lot in the context view is if I have tenants in my database, which I probably do, and I have leases, I can set up a custom view so that it says, show me all the leases that are expiring in the next 6 months or in the next year, or you can make 6 months and a year, whatever you want. So you just do the same process. You go View Custom Views, and you would call it a new one, and you say lease expirations. Let's see, it's 6 months, let's say. And the custom on the menu would be leases expiring. Okay, so that's your main, and this is what goes on the menu. This is what's underneath it. Click OK, and the field would be lease expiration, would it not? And let's see, where do we find that one? That's way down, I think. It's under tenant. So you got to go way down to find this particular field. Investor. And it is alphabetical. All right, tenant. Okay, what did I miss? Did I miss it here? Should be here. I must have scrolled by it. Okay, let's see if it's right at the beginning here. Usually is. Lease expiration. Okay. Now, here's where people get screwed up with these date things. You say, you can go date is, you can put it in a particular date, but you probably want to do today plus or today minus. Or you can say greater than or less than. Okay? So you can't really do, we can do an in-between, which would be nice, which is probably the best one. So you can put in a date, let's say is expiring in the next 6 months would be today, and you would go out 6 months, which would be September. So the lease expires between those two, okay? And I click close, and you can use the activate to see if it works. Now, I'm not sure if this will work, if I have any dates in here that'll work, but if I go view, lease is expiring, and I say next 6 months, we'll see if we have any. We have 4. Okay, so we go to tenant, and we go to lease. Okay, we see 6/30/2010, and 5/30, and 8/30, and 8/30, 8/31. So the whole idea here is you can set up different expiration ranges, and what happens is when it's the 6 months, because of the way we set it up, REA will search on the 6 months and find it. Okay. So that's something else you can do with custom views, and you can play around with those, make them anything you want. Okay. Last thing I want to show you before we get off today is one of the things that people do a lot when they're doing their business is talk to people on the phone, and the person says, "Hey, do you have so-and-so's name and address in your REA database?" And I say, "Yes." He says, "Well, can you email that to me?" And I say, "Sure." So let's say I'm talking to Michelle, and she wants Don Wellington's address and contact information. Well, what I do to easily get back to Michelle is I click it, and I tag her in my database. And then I go F12 and do my search for Don Wellington. And I got Don Wellington here. And now I go to this, you can't highlight and paste this. You can't copy it when you right-click. You can do a Control-C, by the way. That will work. But it's easier to go to Record, Copy Details, Copy to Clipboard, Address, Phone, and Mail. Okay? Now, how do I find Michelle again? I just go up here and say, show me my tagged record. And it takes me right back to Michelle. Okay? And now I can click my email button. And when Outlook comes up here, I can right-click and paste. And here's everything she needs to know about Don Wellington. And then I just click send, and I say, I subject Don's contact info. And send that off to her. All right, so launch another quick poll here. And hopefully everybody can see that. There's the poll coming up, poll in progress. Okay. Got a question while we're doing the poll. It says, how is custom view function different from saved queries? It's really not, Chris. It's a way to build a menu of saved queries that you can combine for different types, for the same type of search that you want to do a little bit of variations on, and then you can put them on the menu and so forth. So it's another wrinkle on saved queries, but it has a little more flexibility. Okay. So everybody's voted, and we're going to close the poll and share it. And of course, everybody who voted is paying attention, and of course, you're right. Using REA every day, those are the people who get the most business and use REA because it becomes their main tool for making money with REA. Okay, got another question. Is building status for listings a better option than making a group called company listings, pros and cons, any difference? In other words, the question is, if I make groups and just put some, a closed group or active group, in contract group, is it any better or any worse? Well, yeah, because here's what happens. When I put a property in, or let's say I'm looking at a property, it goes from available to under contract, and I change the building status field to under contract. REA will automatically, when you run that view, will automatically find and add that under contract to the view. Obviously, you can do the same thing by going to the property and then have groups in properties and say, okay, I got to add this one to under contract, but that means you got to take it out of, let's say, active. Whereas if you just use a field and have REA do the search, it's a one-step saying, okay, change it from available to under contract, and then you'll have the correct data in there. So that's what I think the pros and cons are doing that. So, any other questions before I sign off this morning? Okay, I want to send you a website that I want you to actually go to and send to your friends. And this one is, if you want to take lessons on Facebook or Twitter, how to use it for your business, there's video lessons on there that are free. And you just go there and you don't have to sign in or anything. Just go and say, I want to see how to use Twitter or Facebook for business. Create a Facebook account, which is becoming more and more important to everybody as far as social marketing is concerned, and people can find you. So take a look at howtosoftware.com. And if there are any other questions, if they're not, I should say, then I will bid you all adieu and have a great, great Thursday and a terrific 2010. Any more questions? Thank you all very much, and look forward to having you on our next webinars. Please sign up for the ones that we have on our website. Bye-bye.